Facebook's co-founder says it's time to break up the social media giant. Mark Zuckerberg says, nah. Uber's first day as a public company was very disappointing, and hell may be freezing over because Microsoft is going to make some portions of Windows 10, wait for it, open source. You'll discover what's going on in the tech world over in the Baltics, and Travis and myself are off to New York for the continent's biggest crypto event of the year, Censorship. It's tech news, interviews, and more to feed your inner geek. So let's get this party started, Nancy.
Ready for your hot fix of tech news with the latest apps, sexy software, and groovy gadgets? You've got it with the bad boys of tech. Take it away, gentlemen.
Hello, nerds, geeks, dweebs, and dorks. It's the bad boys of tech. You are along for the ride with Joel Comm and Travis Wright and Mr. Stuart Rogers, the biggest of nerds. Yes, we're here now, and welcome to the show.
We're going for a ride? Where are we going?
We're going for a podcast ride. It's a journey into technology, into the future, Mate.
Oh, that is true. And we actually are getting on a plane and going to New York City here, too. So it's all kinds of journeys going on. And who the hell knows where Stuart Rogers is this week? I have no clue. I think he's in California.
Yeah, I think he is as well, but he was just in the Baltics for a tech conference. And later on in the show, we've got a couple really interesting interviews that he conducted while there. We'll get to that in a bit, but first, want to give a shout out to our show sponsor, Nobody. We don't have a sponsor, Travis.
Yeah. What's up with that? We should totally have a sponsor. We're amazing.
So if you want to sponsor this show, the Bad Boys of Tech, then write us at badboysoftech@gmail.com or just throw copious amounts of Bitcoin at us and we'll let you on the show. But we do have lots of news, Travis. Lots and lots of news.
There's all kinds of news about big tech and medium tech and little tech and quantum tech.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nice. I see what you did there.
Nanotech.
The big story for the week is from Facebook co-founder Chris Hughes, a name that you might not know as much unless, of course, you saw the film that was all about Facebook because he and Zuckerberg founded Facebook, in Harvard, like 14, 15 years ago or something like that.
That's what they say.
Mm-hmm.
They say that's what happened.
Mm-hmm. Who knows what really happened? It could be a big conspiracy, but there was a big opinion piece in the New York Times just this week that Chris wrote, and his opinion is that it's time to break up Facebook.
This is a really interesting piece right here, and Chris was one of the guys who helped co-found it there with Zuck. And if you actually look at this article here from New York Times, their faces are like right all up in you, right? Like here's their faces. Facebook, it's like, oh, could you not zoom in so much? I can see the pores in your face, and that's kind of scary. I like the picture here that it has with Zuck from like 2004, where his shirt says, "My mom thinks I'm."
Well, nobody else does right now, but here's the deal. This dude, Chris, is actually upset with Mark Zuckerberg. They saw each other a couple of years ago, right before the Cambridge Analytica scandal blew up. And, he makes the point that Mark's influence is bigger than anybody else in the private sector or in government because he controls 3 core communications platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. And even the board, Mark controls 60% of voting shares. So he's deciding what people are seeing and what they're not seeing and how the privacy settings are being used. There is too much power in the hands of one person is the case that Chris Hughes makes.
It's not very democratic, really, when you have one person who has this much power. And I know that, Facebook has been a big part of our lives for a long time. I'm weaning myself off of it. I was actually banned a week ago for making a comment about InfoWars being banned. And then I mentioned InfoWars, and so I got banned.
You're not
for a week.
You're not weaning it. They're weaning you.
They're weaning me. Yeah. Thanks a lot, weenies.
Yeah.
And, so I like Instagram. I use WhatsApp all the time. So I use these platforms, but there are security issues that bother me. Now, Chris Hughes, he says, Mark, he is a good, kind person, but Chris is angry that his focus on growth led him to sacrifice security and civility for clicks. That's kind of what happened all across media, right? I mean, if you think about it, civility for clicks, it's been sacrificed. There is no civility, especially in mainstream media. And when you start talking about social media and YouTube comments are the least civil place on earth. I think it's pretty rough out there for YouTube comments. And, some of the stuff that you see on Facebook, not good. But one of the things that's interesting is that, they do need to hold Mark accountable. I think Chris says the same thing. They need to hold him accountable because, here's this company that is now the town hall of the world. People come and share their photos of their friends and their family and what they're doing, and they talk about all types of things. They share different news articles, and they debate politics, or in most cases just yell at each other and call each other names about politics. But there's a whole lot of stuff I don't think that they intended whenever they created this. And now they get to the point where, they're starting to act more like a publisher than they are a platform. And so, they're getting to the point where they say, hey, you know what, Alex Jones, Laura Loomer, Milo Yiannopoulos, you guys don't deserve to have an internet presence on our site. Louis Farrakhan, you don't deserve to have an internet presence on our site. They're acting like a publisher. And people are saying, oh, well, they're a private company. They can do what they want. Well, what happens, when Chase Bank says you can't have a bank because we don't like your opinion? That's already happening. What happens when your phone company says, you guys were having conversations about topics that we don't approve of, and so we're not going to let you have your AT&T service anymore, right? I mean, how far are we going to go?
Hey, that could happen. That could happen to us. Apple could go, we don't like the things you're saying, and we're taking your podcast off of iTunes. And so, it's amazing. The people who say that, oh, it's a private platform are the same people that would be yelling helplessly at the sky if it were happening to them or people that they supported. They would be crying for their mommies. And so, I am a free speech advocate. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I don't have to listen to what you have to say if I don't want to listen to it. And people need to be able to say whatever they want.
There's this thing called block. I don't know if you've seen this feature or not. There's this other feature of not clicking on people's profiles, right? If you don't want to see what they have to say, don't go and view them, right? If you don't like what Rush Limbaugh has to say, don't turn on his radio station, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but for you to say, I don't like what Rush Limbaugh has to say, so I don't want you to listen to it. That's right. The problem we're having.
I don't care for Don Lemon at all. I think the guy's a complete moron, but I'm not telling anybody, hey, don't listen to Don Lemon. I just don't go watch. No, I need to control whether somebody else can because he's dangerous.
Right. That's what happens in a capitalist society. We choose what we view and listen to and consume with our dollars. Like just the other day, the Best Buy CEO was talking about some stuff that I didn't like. And so guess what? I'm probably not going to go to Best Buy anymore. That's my choice. I can, but I'm not going to say, oh, everybody should stop going to Best Buy. No, I'm just going to not go to Best Buy anymore. And that's my prerogative. That's how it works in a capitalist society. Just because you don't like something, you don't cut their tongue out. And now when we start talking about social media and the fact that Twitter and YouTube and all these sites are just eliminating points of view, and most of the time they're eliminating points of view on one side of the aisle, not as many on the other side of the aisle. So you start getting in that debate, well, is this collusion with the election? Because now they're eliminating certain points of view and not letting and allowing others to be louder. Does that impact elections? Like, that's a question that could legitimately be asked, Mr. Joel Comp, although we're not a political
podcast. But I think, these issues are important because if you don't talk about free speech, then you lose it. And that means, one day they might come for somebody who is considered on the fringe like Alex Jones. But what about when they come for us? And we're not fringy.
What about when they come for you? Hulkamaniacs, all you little Hulkamaniacs out there, we're coming for you.
Well, here, Facebook has responded to Chris Hughes's editorial. Mark Zuckerberg, in fact, is the one who has responded. And his essential response is, no, that's not a good idea. He says it won't do anything to break up Facebook. And I don't know that I disagree with that. I think that one person having the power is too much, but I don't know, that breaking up the bells really did much for the phone companies. They've all gotten acquired again anyhow.
Well, it did, because originally when you had Ma Bell, you had one ridiculous long distance bill and they could charge you whatever they wanted. Then when you had competition, well, then guess what? The prices have gone down. If there was only one cell phone company available in America, guess what? The prices would be ridiculous. There wouldn't be the Crickets and the Boost Mobiles and the other ones competing for those lower price deal. So it is good. You got to have competition, but there is no competition for Facebook. There is no Instagram competition or WhatsApp competition, really. They are pretty much, they have a monopoly on that. And also Google. Now, Google has tried to sort of separate themselves by creating this new Alphabet thing, because I think there was a really big argument for breaking up Google, and maybe they need to break up Alphabet. But
into 26
these two
letters,
large companies, which, yeah, they probably could. Well, I think these two really big companies right here, they are very, very influential.
Mm-hmm.
What is it, like 85% of all digital advertising, or the number's close to that, comes through either Google or Facebook. They have a whole lot of impact. And if they are starting to leverage their platforms to become political adversaries, then that's when you got a really big problem. And I think that's where they're kind of stepping into, and they're letting their political bias kind of lead. And that could be very, very dangerous.
So this article and all the ones we're going to reference here are at thebadboysoftech.com. This is episode 15, so you can see links to all the show notes. The New York Times piece and the piece here in Gizmodo that is about Zuckerberg saying no are both pretty lengthy, especially the New York Times piece. So there's some good reading there.
That's what she said.
She's right about that. And we'll see where this goes. I'm not a big fan of government regulation or government interference, but I think that we have finally gotten to the place with these social media and tech giants that they have too much power, more power than was ever intended by our founding fathers.
And I'm not really a big fan of censorship. Mm-hmm. I mean, I am an anti-censorship zealot. I mean, it just infuriates me, just because I know that once they take out a few tongues off of a few subsets of people, then just the avalanche happens, and then they start nitpicking and saying, well, you can't speak, you can't speak, you can't speak. It's just a version, I think, of the Chinese social credit system that they're implementing here in America, but there's no real score. It's just, big tech doesn't like what you have to say, they'll shut you off, and so that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Who else is having problems is Uber. Of course, they've had a lot of problems. The ride-sharing company finally went public. Lyft went public first, and Uber has gone public. They were previously valued at $72 billion by venture capitalists. They priced the stock at $45 each, and it began trading below at $42 a share, and even lower after hours at that. So kind of a disappointing start. Usually when these tech companies end up going public, there's this big boom and people, cheer, making a lot of money. But both Uber and Lyft are losing money.
Well, I mean, not only that, but there's like a big strike going on with some of the drivers. I was reading an article earlier this week that said on average, Uber drivers and Lyft drivers, I don't know if it's Lyft drivers included, but Uber drivers make $9.15 an hour when you factor in all the different stuff that, they got to deal with, the gas and all of this stuff, and how now Uber wants to take an additional, I think, 25% of the money. Now, whenever it started, like Uber would only take like 5 or 10%, and then it went to 15, and then to 20%, then to 25%. Now they want to take 50%, maybe up to that. And I don't know the exact specifics on that, but I knew that's where it's getting to. And they're not using their car, they're not using their gas, and wow, it's interesting. Now, this right here, Mr. Joel Comm, is a space that's ripe for disruption from a decentralized blockchain solution, one that is not as greedy as Lyft or Uber.
Well, I don't know. You say greedy, but if they're not making money, then I think they're just trying to figure out, how do we make this thing profitable? Because if they don't make money, then they're not going to be able to stay in business. I like some of the other solutions that have come our way, especially like the scooters, right? You and I got to partake in that a little bit when we were in Paris. And of course, I use them here in Denver from time to time.
I mean, they even have them here in Kansas City, too. They're in pretty much every major city now, those Birds and Lime, and Lyft has one, Uber has one. When we were in Paris, I saw like 9 different brands. I saw like one called Wave and Hive and Dot and A bunch
You
of them.
could scoot anywhere you want. And of course, that's not going to get you around a long distance, but I do like that there's alternatives. Of course, they have bike, rentals as well, if you want to go a little further. And it'll be interesting. Here's the deal with disruption via a blockchain solution. Autonomous cars are coming. So all these people that are drivers, eventually they're going to be put out of business by the company they work for as they say, you know what, we don't need to pay drivers anymore. We have our own autonomous vehicles to take people around.
That's true. And again, I don't know how Uber and Lyft are having problems making money when they don't have to pay for the cars. They don't have to pay for the gas. They're just literally taking a percentage of what the drivers make. They should be cash flush, but they're not, because I think they tried to expand too big into too many cities too quickly. They had too many big loans they have to pay back. And so I think that's part of the problem. So they were really hoping for a successful IPO. But I think you're right on the nose, Mr. Joel Comm, where, these autonomous driving cars are going to be the future.
Speaking of autonomous cars, there's an article on Engadget saying that these cars are going to do more than just drive us from point A to point B. They'll actually go and run errands for us, right? They become our personal servants.
Well, I mean, imagine that. Like, how you do DoorDash now and you have your, the grocery. What's the grocery one you do? Instacart?
Instacart, yeah.
Well, imagine you could just do an order and go send your car over there, and your car then somebody can come out and put the groceries or put your food in the car, and then your car can come back home. I mean, that's going to be awesome. But I think one of the things that this article really talks about is the lost art of driving. Like, I think future generations, they're not going to get that joy of driving or even, realize how cool driving is. Like, my son's almost 18. Doesn't really care about driving. It's not like a big issue to him because all of his friends are on his phone and all of his friends are on Steam and Fortnite, and he can just jump on a game and play with them and hang out, right? He doesn't have to go drive and go see him, which is an interesting paradigm shift.
What about for people that actually just like cars? I mean, go tell Jay Leno that your car collection, you're not going to be able to drive those anymore because there's legislation. And I think, he and millions of other people are going to take exception with that, and maybe over a few generations that'll change. But the point of this article is that when you think of your vehicle as more than just a case of going from point A to point B, you've got these robots, these machines that will be able to do a lot more for us. Initially the Amazon Echo was to play music, right, or look up a few things from the Wikipedia. That was the initial one, but now it does so many things. And I think that's...
Did you say what? Alexa.
Play the Bad Crypto podcast.
Alexa, stop. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, that is interesting, but there has also been some other talks about this. There was an article in The Economist that was why driverless cars will be mostly shared and not owned. So maybe in 10, 15 years, maybe only 20% of Americans will have a car. And it's like, oh, I need a car today. And then there's already rental cars. I mean, you could rent, you and I were having a conversation the other day about how you could rent out your Mustang and let people drive it if you wanted to, right? I mean, so maybe in the future, it's like, oh, I don't need a car every day, but you know what? I need a car from, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. because I want to go run and go run some errands. Then maybe a self-driving car will come, pick me up, and go run off. I'll do my errands and come back. Or, like you said, maybe I'll just tell the car to go run the errands for me, and the Instacart people will put my food in there, and this and that. The Sonic people will put my food in there, and come back home, and now I got my food. Pretty soon, we won't need to ever leave our home ever, Mr. Joe Common. We'll never see anyone ever again, and then we'll die in isolation.
It'll be like WALL-E, that Pixar film. Well, speaking of autopiloted vehicles, people are trying to push the limits of what's possible in them. And you located the story on insider.com about some shenanigans.
Oh, you had to say that I was the one who found the article.
You did.
Yeah, I did find the article. So a couple shot a porn video in a Tesla while it was on autopilot, while there were a lot of other cars driving by, and the redhead in the video is really cute. I'm not trying to say I watched the full video. I watched about 2 minutes of it.
So I guess that's a first because they filmed themselves. Taylor Jackson, she's an adult performer in Los Angeles, performer. Why can't we just not call him, porn star or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they're necessarily a porn star. They're like a member of the community of people who upload their own shenanigans up on Pornhub.
Okay, so a roll your
An
own
amateur
porn star.
Yeah.
And they put it up on Pornhub, is what it says here. And somebody posted a comment on Instagram and said, reporting you to Elon Musk for not having two hands on the wheel with autopilot enabled. Because
yeah, well, there were two hands on something. Well, it was not.
Yeah, there were hands.
The wheel.
That
was good.
They were getting fancy.
I mean, it's interesting. That's the whole thing is the windows, I don't think were tinted enough. They probably need to tint the windows a little bit more because they might, drive by and see some crazy things. But I think in the future, these autonomous cars are not even going to resemble cars like we have today, because really, do you need all four seats facing forward if you're in an autonomous driving car? And that's why a lot of the illustrations of the future cars are going to be sort of like captain seats where you can kind of swivel around and then all four people are facing each other, maybe playing board games or that's what they show. But in reality, everybody will still be on their own phones in their own little world, probably not talking to each other. But you're going to have opportunities to talk to one another in the future in your autonomous car, looking at each other and whatnot, and having sex in the car while you're driving. I was actually talking to my Uncle Mark today. He had a badass van back in the day, one of those pimp boogie vans that he pimped out that had had the bed in the back and the couch and the refrigerator for the beer and whatnot in the 70s, and had the little table and the chairs, and like those were awesome. That's like its own little party van. And I think that's kind of how autonomous cars are going to be. You're going to be able to drink and drive anywhere you go.
I suppose so. Yeah. If you're not actually the one doing the driving, then it would be just fine. All right. Well, moving right along to our next story here, Microsoft in the news on Ars Technica. Apparently, Microsoft has changed quite a bit, and the mentality inside the corporate HQ has also changed, and they are moving towards open source, at least in a very small way. It's the Windows terminal project, command line projects, right? That where you go to the command line and you're able to have control over your operating system in a way that, point and click doesn't have. And they're seeing that open source is no longer the enemy.
I guess not. So they're opening it up. They also talked about opening up several Windows utilities, such as Calculator, which they say is the very first time that the company has published core Windows code with an open source license, right? So more and more things are changing within that. So that I think that's kind of interesting. Another piece of Microsoft news is they are updating Microsoft Word. This is Joel Com.
Word.
Not only are they are not only updating it, but they are making Word politically correct through the use of AI.
How's that?
Did you see that?
Yeah, I didn't actually read it. What are they doing?
They're harnessing the power of AI to boost the use of inclusive language, right? So that way, if you say something like, we better call a policeman, well, it's going to suggest, might you use the word police officer? Or, maybe some other things where you say, I don't know, there's just all kinds of different things you might say that they say, that's not good. You should use this term instead. And so I think it's basically it's the pussification of Microsoft Word is
I meant to say he.
They're making you use words.
I meant to say she. I did not mean to say Zer. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's true. Zerself. I don't know. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that AI is going to do to change words and make recommendations based on social justice warrior ease.
It's not enough that we have the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ or the American Stock Exchange. Now, the SEC has approved a new stock exchange in Silicon Valley that is being backed by the Mark Andreessen himself, along with some other tech heavyweights. So it's time for a new exchange, the Silicon Valley Stock Exchange.
I find that really interesting. I wonder how long until there's going to be the blockchain stock exchange, which would almost seem to be like a next thing that's coming. Why have this new long-term stock exchange? Now it seems interesting to me that they would need that now after the fact that we've had this pretty much amazing bull run over the last few years where the stock market's higher than ever. Why do we need a specific stock exchange specifically for tech companies. Can't we just have like sort of a tech company fund like you do for some of these other things, right? Like just I don't know. I find it interesting. Maybe they need it. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I think it will be more interesting when blockchain pops one.
I think there should be a bad stock exchange, the BSE.
The BSE? Yeah.
BSEX. I think that would be
the BSEX. The bad sex. That's great.
Maybe not. That's now it sounds like Tinder or something.
Sounds like a date. That's good.
I'll swipe left on that. Thank you very much. And let's look at what else is happening here in big tech. Apparently, Google is saving a lot more information on most of us than we know. Now, I have in the privacy settings to not track me at all. Doesn't mean they're not doing it. But apparently now they've got a feature that will automatically delete personal information if you set it to do that after a period of time.
Yeah, it's really handy. So what you do is you visit myaccount.google.com, log in if you haven't already. Then you're going to choose data and personalization on the left side panel. Then you select the arrow next to web and app activity, choose manage activity, and then you can select choose to delete automatically. And then you select either 18 months or every 3 months. And that's how long Google will keep your data in theory. That's what they say. So there might be some other place where they're storing it somewhere other than that. We don't know, but this is what Google says, and that's what the article says. So if you don't want them to store all of your data, then you might want to take a look at that.
Well, like you, I am slowly migrating off of Google to the Brave browser. For at least web browsing. I'm still stuck with Gmail for now, messed around with Proton Mail. You and I have had a look at a new decentralized mail service that I think is still in, alpha, beta, so we don't want to really talk about it yet. But I definitely want to get off of Google as much as possible here over the next year.
Well, it's just a really big company, and, they're doing some stuff. They're definitely impacting search results. If you type in certain things in certain search results and certain search engines, it's interesting to see how different they are, like in a DuckDuckGo or in a start page versus Google or in Bing. Bing is actually really good. They're not biased when it comes to their search results yet, but it's really crazy when you look at some of them. Even if you type in like Hillary Clinton is a, which is a funny one to see just what they say, or Donald Trump is a, or whoever is a, and you look at them and you can see on Google, they plainly whitewashed it and cleared that out. And then in some cases, they've actually even buried certain websites so you can't even find them. And because if they don't go against the narrative that you want, and actually if you type in American Inventors is an interesting one to look at the images because they've changed those around too. They look different in different search engines is what I'm saying. Go take a look for yourself, type in different things in different search engines, and you can see Google is plainly biased. And that's a problem, especially when they start burying search results that they don't want you to see. That's not good.
That's actually really interesting. I've opened up Google and Bing and DuckDuckGo. And what I'm seeing on Google is if you type Hillary Clinton there's nothing. All you get under Hillary Clinton are things that are net worth, biography, college, wiki, book, campaign, Instagram, running May 2008 and 2020. If you go to DuckDuckGo and you type it, then you get Hillary Clinton is sick is the only suggestion I get from DuckDuckGo. And if I go to Bing and I type it, I get no suggestions. What's up with that? People have to be typing things in.
No, they're typing them in. They're just blocking those certain things out. But now if you type in Donald Trump it's someone's like, he's a lunatic, he's a criminal, on all of, it's just interesting to see what people are saying. But you can tell a lot of times those things are edited. If I type in Hillary Clinton I see on DuckDuckGo, I see is a criminal, is a liar. And then if I type that in Google, it doesn't show up anything. Bing, it shows different things as well. So it's peculiar to me. You can plainly see that some search engines are whitewashing things, some are not. So I prefer the ones that are not. Now, another thing that's interesting is that Amazon collects Alexa recordings of your
No, they
most
don't.
intimate moments.
No.
Right? This
No, they
thing
don't.
is listening all the time.
Well,
But you don't
actually,
have one,
I
do you?
had one of
You
the
don't have
first ones, and I made a video and I played with it for a while. Then when I saw what they were doing, I'm like, not so much. Then I went to the CES, and the CES, there was a company that had a little filter that you could put on top of it, and if you press the button, it's supposed to, basically make it so it can't listen when the button's pressed. And so I bought a little Echo Dot, put this thing on it, but it only lasts for like 45 minutes. You have to press every time. So I'm like, nope, and I unplugged it, and I will not have an Echo. Alexa, kiss my butt. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't.
Right. Sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know what that means. I'm not a butt kisser. Yeah. But so there's an article here on the independent.co.uk that actually will walk through the process to show you where you can go through the Alexa privacy settings and then choose review voice history. And you can actually go in, choose a date range, and delete all those recordings and erase the whole history of that. So there are times it's listening to you that you might be having boogie time with the missus or boogie time with the mister or your significant other or your whoever, and they're listening and they're recording it, and you could go back and actually listen to some of those moments.
It is, and Amazon's already admitted that employees do listen to conversation and tell me that they're not there, just for grids and switching between IPs and picking up on stuff. Hey, let's listen to this. What's going on here? It's interesting. Gather. Forget that. No, not going to happen. Forget about it.
I saw a funny meme about that. Like back in the 60s, they were like, no, I don't want to talk because they might be listening to me. They might be spying on my phone calls. And then it's like, hey, spy machine, please play me the latest song on Spotify.
Right.
Yeah. So they're definitely listening.
Totally the next generation is being completely conditioned to hand over privacy. We've already been through a lot, but they're definitely being conditioned to, this is for you. This is for your benefit. This will make your life better. And there's no doubt, technology is amoral on its own, right? It's the people behind it that are either good or evil. And the problem with great technology that is very powerful is eventually, I've seen the movies, somebody evil gets their hand on it. And that's, have you not seen a James Bond film? The evil geniuses, like they always want to end of the world. Come on.
Dr. Evil. He wants to end the world. Yeah. So yeah, maybe they're not going to end the world. Maybe quantum computing, Mr. Joel Comm, is what's going to end the world. There's this article here on Forbes called "The Quantum Revolution is Coming, Ready or Not." Now, quantum computing is interesting to us because, we talk about blockchain a lot on our show, Bad Crypto Podcast, and quantum computing is something it's kind of a scary major threat to blockchain networks. And then how I understand quantum computing is like right now, your computer is sort of processing things with ones and zeros just on this one level, one layer. But imagine it processing stuff like in multiple layers and inner and outer and upper and all around, like maybe a cube. So instead of just, ones and zeros, they're processing this cube of information in all directions. So it's the processing power is going to be just ridiculous. You're going to be able to do things unseen before, and it's going to make these computers are going to be so fast. And they're concerned that these quantum computers can change and manipulate and crack these encrypted codes, right? And so people seem to think that quantum computing is coming here sooner than later.
All right. Well, I guess we'll wait and see. I kind of feel that the people that are developing are going to keep up with this along with the pace of, how quantum is developing, but I could be wrong. We could be behind the eight ball on it.
Yeah. Well, they say this, like if quantum computing is able to scale up in theory, what would take an average normal computer thousands of years to do, including cracking of cryptography that protects these blockchain networks, a quantum computer could do it under a minute. Like, that's mega.
That is mega.
Super mega.
Super mega deluxe, even.
Oh, my God.
That's super fast.
Man, you're right.
Moving along here, Instagram is going to be making a change, at least testing it in some markets. They think that perhaps people have their minds on likes too much, right? People are like, oh, I need more likes. I need more people liking what I'm posting. And if they don't get them, then it becomes a mental health issue. And, influencers are selling themselves based on likes. Some are anyway. And I don't think I've ever sold myself based on likes. I think it's always about reach. But a lot of those likes,
I charge for licks.
a lot of those likes could be fake likes. And so there's this article on HuffPo, an Instagram with no likes could have a big impact on mental health. And I think they're rolling this out in Canada first. They've already started the test, and allegedly it's coming to America next. The only person who will be able to see the likes is the person who's posting it. They'll have access to their analytics, but it won't be a public metric that people can see.
Well, I think a part of that public metric is why people, have that sort of dopamine spike anyways. They want to see that. They want to, have people engage with their content and like it and leave comments. And if they don't leave those comments or don't like it, then people are going to, over time, not want to post as much, right? I mean, that's part of the lure of social media, is that engagement factor. And it's almost like this: if the tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to take a selfie with it, doesn't exist. And it's going to be that same thing. If nobody's there to like your photos, or nobody's liking your photos, eventually people are going to stop posting.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's really unfortunate. Being a big fan of social media in the beginning, I'm pretty disappointed with how society has been affected by it. And honestly, if it all shut down tomorrow, then I think we would probably ultimately be better for it.
I was thinking this the other day, that we are reaching the dark ages of technology, right? Where technology can have such a negative impact on society. And I was thinking, like, man, that would be a great topic for a book. And I was thinking around the dark ages of technology are here, when you get into this dystopian type society where, imagine you have the Chinese social credit system, where they can determine if, you're worthy enough to ride in an airplane or get on a train, or, use your credit card to buy groceries or whatever. I mean, that's scary. And then you have people, sites like Facebook saying, we don't like your opinion. We think you're dangerous. You no longer have a voice. They start wiping people out. I mean, then you start getting this technocracy who is in charge of things. And then when AI gets stronger, and if you have an authoritarian society that's powered by this technocracy and then the power of AI, we're going to get into this dark ages that's going to be hard to escape from, because the power behind all of that is going to rule all that we do. So there's some things that just kind of freak me out about that, Mr. Joel Comm, and I'm glad we're talking about it, because maybe with blockchain, there's still time to save us from some of that.
Well, they're actually implementing this year. They're fully rolling out in China the social credit system. I just dropped a link in there for you to check out, Mr. Travis, right? That a music video was created by the government of China that released this week with some of their biggest stars praising the social credit system. Really? So it's complete propaganda. The celebrities sing in this video, "Let's all be trustworthy youngsters."
Let's all be trustworthy youngsters. And then the thing about the social credit system is, because, like, say, for example, the government doesn't like what I talk about, well, then I get a lower credits rating. And then if Joel Comm's my friend, since you're a friend of mine and we have a show together, then your social credit score is going to plummet because you're my friend. But if you're no longer my friend, then your credit score will rise. So what's going to happen is it's going to isolate a lot of these folks, make them feel sort of like loners. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of those folks down the road who have low credit systems and low credit scores end up going ape within the society and start doing terrorism and type of things. Because, like, if you start isolating people and not letting them speak their mind and get more and more frustrated, then you actually create a bigger problem.
Yeah, many people have seen the Black Mirror sci-fi series on Netflix, and season 3, episode 1 is called Nosedive. If you don't watch any others, go watch this, because it's all about how they're in a society where people are rating their online and interactions on a scale of 1 to 5 stars. And then to see this actually happening in China. Like, we do not want anything like this here. This would be very, very bad.
Well, we're kind of getting it. But it's not like a voluntary system. It's basically Facebook and Google are the ones who determine if they like what you have to say or not. So it's not like an overarching government system, but it's sort of a covert one. And they're eliminating certain voices that would maybe have some things to say during election seasons. And if they're no longer able to say these things and people aren't able to pay attention to their content, does that mean that Google and Facebook are colluding with the election? I mean, that's a question. That's a legitimate question to ask, because yeah, they are colluding. They're not allowing certain people to speak their points of view because that hurts their fifis. That's interesting to think about.
You're just a conspiracy theorist, Travis, right?
I am a conspiracy realist.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to something lighter here. Keyboards and iPhones and
Right.
iOS. What's this all about?
Oh, you know what? I found this article because I know you were marveling at my swiping skills on the iPhone.
Yes, they are. You do have skills. No question. That is a skill you have stacked on your fingers.
Well, you know what? It's like I don't like to type with two fingers, right, on my phone. I don't have to hold it with two hands, and so I can actually swipe pretty effectively with just my thumb and say what I want to say, or I can just hit the microphone and talk. But a lot of times I'll just swipe something out. But iOS is reportedly getting their own swipe to type keyboard. I've been a fan of Swipe, SY or SWYPE, since it first came out on Android way back in the day. And there's like Swift Key, and there's Gboard, which is the Google keyboard, and there's some other ones out there that are really handy. So I like to swipe, and I can actually swipe without looking at the keyboard because I know where the ABCs are, and so I'm just spell out the letters and spell out the words, and it works pretty well. So, coming, Mr. Joel Com, you might be able to swipe someday.
Swipe to type. You got to swipe to type. Come on, a swipe to type, because it's just right.
Yeah.
I won't rap anymore. That's all the news that we've got, Mr. Travis Wright. And I think we've got some great interviews here from Stuart Rogers from the Baltics. He recently attended an event over there. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce the names of the gentleman that he interviewed. But let's go ahead and toss it to Stuart and see what's happened in tech in the Baltics.
Stewie!
Well. This is your roving reporter, Stuart Rogers, and today I find myself in Vilnius, in Lithuania. We're here at the Baltic Sandbox Demo Day. I've had the great pleasure of mentoring some of the Baltic Sandbox startups here, talking about PR and press and how to get their wonderful stories published in Tier 1 and Tier 2 media. And now they get to stand on stage, all nervous and shaking, and tell everybody what they've been up to. But before we get to that today, I have the great pleasure of sitting here with Dominykas Stagvicius of Invest Lithuania, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's different about the tech ecosystem out here in the Baltics. Dominykas, great to see you this morning.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, tell us about that. Yeah, I go around the world, I see all sorts of different tech ecosystems, from obviously the big one in Silicon Valley, through to, New York, Paris, Dubai, etc., etc. Every single different ecosystem has its own little nuances.
Sure.
What makes Vilnius and Lithuania special, and what makes the Baltics special in general and different to the rest of the world?
So I think the Baltic region is really an interesting region in the European Union. We have the 3 Baltic states that are called the Baltic Tigers because they're growing so fast compared to other countries in the European Union. And what we see is that there's a lot of really, really good IT talent, and people are so good at developing new products, developing innovation, and creating new things for the global companies here. So that's why we have a lot of companies like NASDAQ, Western Union, Danske Bank. They're developing their technologies here. What we see is here in the Baltics, and especially in Vilnius, I think, is a lot of people are so hungry for new challenges, and you can see it in their eyes. They want to go global, but they are still lacking a little bit of mentorship. And I'm really happy that you're here to mentor the startups here. And we've historically had a really strong mathematical skills. We were the Soviet Union's powerhouse for the maths. Maybe that's why we now have one of the strongest lasers ecosystem in the world here in Lithuania. And we also have the Nordic working culture. So the combination of the two, the culture and the working culture and the mathematical skills, and also the costs of doing business are still quite low compared to the other countries, I would say is the mix that helps the Lithuanian startups to be the next rising stars.
And we see, in particular in this region, quite a lot of fintech startups. Especially, it's quite interesting to me that, if you look at the region, it's relatively small in comparison to the rest of the world, and yet, we see the Revoluts of the world, sort of just coming up out of nowhere and getting incredible traction and getting, literally millions of users. In addition, there are lots of other sort of household names that have come out of the Baltic regions, and that's always interesting to me because, when I look at, say, for example, the ecosystem in Russia, they have an amazing array of talent too, and they've produced some incredible startups, but literally one of those has become a worldwide household name, and that's Kaspersky. And of course, they kind of ruined it for themselves with the whole spyware thing, which is not great. But you've got huge companies in Russia like Yandex, but you really only hear about Yandex in Russia or just a couple of other Russian-speaking countries. Yeah, how is it that the Baltics have been punching above their weight so much and have managed to produce, so many? I mean, Grammarly, for example, is huge. Also, how is it that they've managed to really puncture the worldwide marketplace where huge countries like Russia just haven't?
So I think it's the ability of the Baltics to serve the whole European market, which is more than 500 million people and more than 23 million SMEs working in this market. So I think there is a lot of opportunities to serve an extremely huge market, an extremely rich market from the Baltic states. So I think access to market was one of the key things that helped us grow so fast. We even see companies from, you mentioned Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. Some of their companies are actually even relocating their teams to the Baltic states because they want to serve the European market, and it's way closer for them geographically and culturally than going to, let's say, London or Berlin. So we actually see that trend as well. And I think, giving the scope of the IT talent here, there was also the capability to grow good products from here. So access to market and good talent were the main triggers, I believe.
It's also the I don't know the best way to put this, but in Russia, it's quite common that although all of my friends and everybody that I know in the tech ecosystem speaks English, more often than not, when I go to tech events, everyone is speaking Russian, and it's not that there's not the capability, but maybe the unwillingness. Is there more of a willingness here to speak English, and is that one of those sort of reasons that these companies here have become much more popular around the world?
Exactly. So we're born with the language, which is a micro language spoken by 3 million people. Right. So from day one, we're pushed to learn new languages. And actually 85% of young professionals in Lithuania speak fluent English, and 52% of the population speak at least 2 foreign languages.
Yeah.
So that helps companies to scale in Europe, which has so many different cultures, so many different languages. So you're looking for a country that has multilingual talent.
Perfect. We're here at Rise, which of course is Barclays co-working and they do a lot of different things in the world. I think must be my 4th Rise around the world so far, which is pretty cool. Demo Day is coming. What are you most excited to see at Demo Day today?
So I'm really excited to see the growth of the local startups. As I mentioned before, I think the mentoring for the pre-seed stage is the key.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that a lot of experts from around the globe are coming to Lithuania and putting their effort and time to train those startups. So I really want to see the progress, where those startups had an idea on the napkin, and now they're going to present, new business plans, new ideas, how to conquer the world.
And that's a good point, actually. I mean, I'm kind of not famous for, but all my friends know that quite often I'll come up with outlandish startup ideas on a napkin. The latest was actually when I was in Estonia a few days ago, and we were talking about carbon offsetting, and my friend said, well, you shouldn't have the trees planted in Scotland like you do now. You should have them planted in Estonia. We've got amazing forests and lots of space. So I, suddenly had a spark of inspiration, and I looked on the domains, and treestonia.com was available. So I now own that. So look out for a startup from me in the near future, planting trees in Estonia at treestonia.com.
Yeah.
Listen, it's been awesome to chat with you this morning. Really looking forward to Demo Day. It's wonderful to be here, and it's going to be so exciting. There's a lot of really cool startups that I've had the pleasure of mentoring over the last couple of days, and I'm excited to see how they perform on stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we're still here at the Baltic Sandbox Demo Day, and part of Demo Day, of course, is listening to all of the wonderful startups and seeing them pitch. Not just this current crop, but also we've had previous alumni come by and tell us a little update on what they're doing. And I am sitting here, Dima Besnesuk. Dima is a CEO, is that right to say?
Founder, managing partner.
Founder of C Radar, right?
Yeah.
First of all, just so that our listeners know, tell us what C Radar is.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dima. Yeah. We are an online platform for booking boards. We launched in June 17 in Tallinn, Estonia. Now we tripled our booking revenue for last year, and we project to increase our booking revenue by 6x this year. And so we are raising money for that goal. Now we have more than 100 paid clients and about 1,500 in our pipeline. It's our leads from professional captains and ordinary people who want to sail and want to book the yachts with captain or without captain.
Nice. So, actually last year for me was the year of boats, would you believe? Every conference we went to, somebody set up a party that was on a boat. And so, people renting out boats and yachts and all sorts of vessels. And of course, we were filling them with a combination of alcohol and DJs and going up and down rivers or around lakes and all this good stuff. It's becoming more and more popular for people to rent out a yacht or a boat of some description because it's nice, it's different. It's something a little bit off the beaten path. Most people have rented out at this point, I think, probably an Airbnb. Or they've stayed at a hotel, and you're kind of doing a combination of the two, right? So it's like a Hotel Tonight or Booking.com, and it's also like Airbnb. Going through the program here with Baltic Sandbox, what was that like, and what did that do for you when you were setting up and when you were like in the first stages of Sea Radar?
You asked me about my progress in Baltic Sandbox.
Yeah.
Baltic Sandbox helps me to pack my offer for VC investors, to pack my presentation, especially Wallace Green. It's best teacher for train me like a pitcher, like a stage pitcher, because I have a lot of stage pitches before, but not in English language. So for me, it's very exciting, and it was untypical experience. And by the way, the Baltic Sandbox helps me to learn my unit economy, to build my right unit economy with all metrics, with all projections. And so I have my plans for the next 3 years with the deep numbers, which can I understand and can explain to other investors.
Yeah,
and to
nice.
My partners.
Also, I mean, that's a key thing in business, right? Understand your business from a financial point of view, because I think a lot of founders have got a great idea and they've got a lot of passion, but they sometimes get it wrong as far as the finances are concerned, or the costs, or even just the team and how to bring on a team and how to make sure that you are competitive, but without spending too much money at the same time, and attract the right people and retain the right people, but without killing yourself from a cost perspective. It's important to have that kind of knowledge. When you were working with Baltic Sandbox, tell us a little bit about, what the average week looks like in terms of the kind of help they give, but also what it means to have mentors come in on all sorts of different topics and help you with a better understanding of all these different aspects of business?
For example, we have had mentors like Sergey Fedorovich. It's a very deep mentor about unit economy, about business model, and so he helped us to construct and to build our business economy. Such mentors like as Wallace Green, he is a really done from our a lot of materials, a great stage pitch, and a great visual picture to investors and to public. By the way, the Sandra is like a mentor too, in spite of she is the CEO of Baltics and Boss, but she is a very great mentor in marketing acquisition channels, in VC strategy first of all, and with understanding the position of VC markets, like investors, like customers.
And how important is it to have other startups around you at the same time as you're growing? Do you get a chance to bounce ideas off each other or just inspire each other as well? I mean, how does that work out for you?
So we have had about 10 startups in our batch, and absolutely right, they inspired us to make something great because some of them were sleeping in the beach area, for example. Some of them are local startups and help to know about Vilnius, about infrastructure, about specific details in this city, and it very important because we are from St. Petersburg and we are not all native peoples. It was very interesting because I have a lot of travels from my native city St. Petersburg to Vilnius, and I have about one trip per every week. So now I have a VIP status in Lux Express company, a bus company, because I have about 40 bus movements from my city to here.
And how is Vilnius for both the tech scene and also just for being here? I mean, in comparison to St. Petersburg, it's an incredibly different city. St. Petersburg is wildly different to Vilnius. How is Vilnius, both from a tech perspective and also from a personal perspective?
You spoke just about city or just about infrastructure and VC?
Translate the question however you like. I mean, I'm interested to know what it's like to be here.
I found the Vilnius is beautiful city. It's very close to Europe, as same as St. Petersburg too. But as we incorporated in Estonia, Tallinn, and we are building the European company, and we should go to close to Europe. And the Russia is not so close to Europe like in Lithuania or Estonia, for example. So I like Vilnius very much. Now we're in progress with temporary resident permit of Lithuania because we'd like to move to Baltic countries, in Lithuania mostly, maybe in Estonia, and to open the headquarter in this city.
Nice, that's awesome. And what's next for you? What are you doing next? What's the big vision?
Our big vision, we'd like to take 10% within market share within the next 5 years of European market of boat rentals, and like to open the China market because it's very untypical and nobody who can work in this market. But we know that the China now it's China government and China businessmen is investing in the boats industry now, and we expected that after some years, after 3 or maybe 4 years, it will be a great industry without any European players inside this industry.
Awesome.
That would be nice, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, thanks for spending a few minutes with me today. Really interesting to get the view not just earlier of the whole region from Invest Lithuania. That was a really interesting interview, but also from somebody that's been through the program, and especially since you've come from St. Petersburg to be here to physically choose to be here. It's really interesting to get a perspective of a startup and what it means to work here and work with the team at Baltic Sandbox. Thanks so much, Dimi.
Thank you, Mr. Stuart Rogers, for the always on point content. And it's, when we get outside of our bubble here, right, what's happening in tech at home, and see that all around the world, there are incubators and there are startups and there are companies that many of us have never heard of that are influencing millions and millions of people. And so we appreciate that content.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Stuart Rogers. Thank you for going out there and interviewing amazing, awesome people. And if you know some amazing, awesome people in the tech world that you'd like us to interview, feel free to let us know. Make an introduction, badboysoftech@gmail.com. And we're a big fan of interviewing super smart, awesome people who are doing cool things in the tech world.
And actually, as people are listening to this show right now, assuming they're listening within 48 hours of the time it came out, we're doing that at this moment. We are at Consensus in New York City, which is CoinDesk's big annual crypto event. It's the biggest crypto event on the continent every year. It's May 13th through 15th, and we actually recorded a Bad Crypto podcast there today, and we're hanging out with a lot of super smart people and having a lot of fun. I know we're having fun, even though it hasn't happened yet.
That's true. I can feel the fun emanating from the future as we speak. Yeah, we've had a lot of stuff going on with launching the Bad Coin. And there's been a lot of stuff. Had to write a white paper, build out the site, do all kinds of things, and managing. Right now, there's over 400 people concurrently mining on Badcoin across all of the different pools that we have set up now. And we're pretty excited about this, man. So if you have ever wanted to mine crypto, or you've ever thought about learning about crypto and how mining crypto works, go to badcoin.net. We have set up this blockchain that's a multi-chain of 5 different algorithms. And basically you can connect to any one of these algorithms depending on which device you have. You're going to connect to the right one and set up the miner, set up your wallet. Boom. Next thing you know, you're mining Badcoin. And right now, over 400 people are mining Badcoin right now, Mr. Joel Comp. That's pretty awesome.
That's amazing. That is, I know a lot of coins would kill for that type of exposure, right from the beginning.
We're bad.
So I'm pretty excited about that there. And people are excited because, they can't mine crypto and they can't afford to mine Bitcoin or Ethereum. They don't have and all of a sudden they're mining crypto and they're like, wow, this is fun. And crypto is fun. And that's what we like to have fun. We like to spread, I know some of the topics we cover in the show can be a little heavy, but they need to be addressed and they need to be addressed openly. And we like to talk about stuff. That's why we do podcasts.
Yeah, not everything in the world is rosy, right? But Joel and I are really, if you've listened to any of our content, most of the time we're pretty hilarious. We like to crack jokes and we like to keep it light. But sometimes there's some things we need to talk about because, things can get out of control, especially when there's this centralized power and that they have narratives that they want to push on to the people. And sometimes you got to let people know, hey, we got to fight back a little bit every now and again,
Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Bad Boys of Tech. We appreciate you, and do reach out to us, badboysoftech@gmail.com. We'll catch you on the next episode. Until then, stay bad.
The Bad Boys of Tech.